Spags, we are entering the dog days of the fantasy football offseason. How can we keep our audience's attention?
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going there, but that's how we're going to do it. A little bit of the suspense because people, you, the person watching this right now on YouTube, you need to watch because we're going to talk about an XFL NFL partnership, the USFL draft, and we're even going to dig into team futures. Who's going to win Super Bowl 2023? Pete and I know, and we're going to tell you right after this intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Splash Play, the fantasy football podcast for every game under the sun. And once again, I'm Chris Spags, joined by your friend of mine, Pete Overzet. Pete, how are you doing on this fine President's Day?
I'm doing good. Yeah, the tables have turned because normally I'm the one kind of slacking, and it's my wife who has to work. And today I'm the one who's working, and she's the one that has the day off. So yeah, I did a Fantasy Life newsletter, doing Splash Play. Feels like the good old days of the season.
I like that you didn't go so far as to say she's slacking, though. To be clear, you got to watch your word choice with that one.
No. She's, she's always doing something,
Yeah, aren't they all? Am I right, fellas out there? But hey, if you're watching this live right now on Pete's channel or the Splash Play channel, or if you're watching it after the fact, make sure you hit the like button. It does help us out a bunch. Helps us fight the YouTube algorithm. That's always important for content creators to stay ahead of the curve with. So that's why when you hear people asking for a like, that's what it means. It helps us keep our livelihood going. I sound robot-y, Pete is saying. Let me see if I could fuck with the audio here. But I'll keep doing plugs anyway, because the important thing is that no matter how I sound, we do have great deals going on over at Football Outsiders. The $1 a week deal has ended. Hopefully I sound better now, but you can still go over there to footballoutsiders.com/subscribe and get yourself a place in line for all the exciting stuff going on, data at your fingertips, DVOA, and I sound fantastic. Pete's telling me, so I'm doing great. You could be doing great too if you go to footballoutsiders.com/subscribe, because at Football Outsiders, the football never stops, Pete. And speaking of football never stopping, what did you write up in the newsletter today? I know, but the people out there, maybe they're curious.
Yeah, it's funny because during the season I was writing it every day, so it was kind of easier to check on what you missed. It was just like whatever happened since 2 p.m. The following day. Whereas now we're going to a Monday Thursday schedule for the newsletter, so I actually have to scroll back through a bunch of posts to figure out if anything has happened. I would say the big stuff, and I know we're going to talk about it, was Brian Flores getting hired with the Steelers, although maybe not quite in as prestigious of a role as we would have hoped. Some rumors on kind of the Texans just really blowing things up with trades and moves this offseason. And what was the other thing? Oh, there's this quote going around from Green Bay beat reporter about how Rodgers playing conservative to kind of enhance his own, interception rates is actually hurting the team, which it's also just a funny thing we were talking about last week, how it's like the second things seem smoothed over with the Packers and Rodgers that someone goes and just kicks up some more dirt to get them all fighting again.
Yeah, we are firmly believers here. As we talked about in last week's shows, it looked like Aaron Rodgers, the odds were favoring him going back to Green Bay. Then they hire his favorite, or it was one of his favorite coaches, but his rookie QB coach that came back into tow after being retired for a few years. It just seems like sometimes the Green Bay Packers media and a lot of the media out there just have to fill the headlines somehow. And I guess that's how they do that, is hot taking their way, hopefully to a Fox Sports show. I don't know what that is, but let's talk about the Brian Flores thing, Pete, that you mentioned, because that is a big one. He did get hired as the Steelers linebackers coach and defensive assistant. The quote that came out from the Steelers was from head coach Mike Tomlin. I'm excited about Brian Flores joining our coaching staff, given his history of developing and teaching defensive players during his time in the NFL. Brian's resume speaks for itself, and I look forward to him adding his expertise to help our team. And Pete, I feel like this is one thing where Mike Tomlin, one of few head coaches of color who've been able to keep his job over the course of time, feels like maybe him giving a little bit of a life raft while also continuing to give, Flores, a guy who's a good coach, a chance to help this, Steelers team that defensively was not that great last year. Certainly was not harkening back to the Blitzburg name that people have grown to love about them. But it feels like this one, Pete, to me, I think kind of a life raft hire, but also probably good to keep Brian Flores in the news and actually active in the coaching community.
Yeah, I would have thought a lot of times we'll see NFL coaches, go from, they try it out at head coach and then go back to coordinator. And I guess it seems like a little bit of a bummer that Flores wasn't able to get offensive or defensive coordinator position somewhere. Like when you read the title for this hire, it seemed like such a random spot. It's like what, assistant defensive specialist and linebackers coach or something. So I don't know, but it is good to see that, he's still willing to be in the mix. I mean, not to continue to make the analogies to Colin Kaepernick, but, Brian Flores being probably in a way swallowing his pride, right? To take a job that is this much of, a relative to demotion to being a head coach. So I'm glad that he's willing to be in the mix. Obviously, I think the Steelers is a good fit for him. And hopefully this will allow him to continue to kind of have a platform to talk about, the stuff that went on in the hiring practices, and hopefully, give him the springboard to land another head coaching job, because I do think he's deserving of it.
Yeah, and he definitely, not the kind of coach who would seem like should have gone without a job in this hiring cycle. It happened. Now he does keep, his talents in the league in a realistic way. And Nick saying that there's a realistic chance he specifically wanted to work with Tomlin, regardless of the position. I think that's also a decent way to look at it as well, given, again, Mike Tomlin is one of these guys who's, really probably has to take on a bigger platform for himself for these younger black coaches and do the best. I'm sure he's doing the best he can behind the scenes. Maybe now publicly has to take on more of a public face of a coach who's, gone through the system and come out the better for it, or at least seemingly would do so, Pete. But I feel like overall it is a good mix, and certainly one where if you are a coach of color out there, probably feels good to have these two guys working together, maybe actually making change on a meaningful level.
Yeah, no, I think, and yeah, that is a very good point by Nick, that, at the end of the day too, you want to go, he probably felt like he was leaving a toxic work environment, with his relationship with the owner and just how he was kind of perceived there. So to go and work with someone I assume he considers a friend or a mentor, I think probably has to feel pretty refreshing for him. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Nick, and shouldn't discount people's desire to work with people they like and feel respected by.
One other big news item that floated out today, I saw it's covered on SI, and I think came out from Sports Business Journal over the weekend. There are rumors that Amazon wants a Black Friday game as part of the new NFL package that they're bidding for. From Sports Business Journal, Amazon has made a little bit of a noise about scheduling a game on Black Friday. A Black Friday game would complement Amazon's e-commerce business and would be similar to the Premier League strategy it has in Britain, where it carries all the league's Boxing Day games. But this store may be closed. The NFL has been lukewarm to the idea. Pete, I feel like this is one thing where the NFL wants to continue trying out these new time slots for games, definitely embracing different spots of real estate that weren't there when we were kids, certainly not when our parents were kids. I feel like this one here, Black Friday games on Amazon, where they're also hawking products, probably annoying. Probably it's another spot where the Jags would be playing, but great for our LaVisca Chenault best ball shares. But I feel like overall, just a great idea that probably they need to do, especially if Amazon's willing to give them a, $500 million a year for it.
Yeah, I actually like it. I'm with Willis here saying Black Friday game would be awesome, especially during that, Thanksgiving stretch, right? Because everyone's off anyways. And I know, at least for the Thursday games, right? Like everyone has to go over to their families. I can't be sitting on my laptop, building showdown lineups all day on Thanksgiving, but having a Black Friday game when nothing's going on, like that sounds like quintessential showdown season for NFL games. So I would love a random NFL game on a Friday when none of us are working. That sounds like a blast.
What tier of game are you thinking, though? Like, are we talking that he can get away with being the London 9:30 a.m. game level of quality, or do we need like a team on the rise? Let's say, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, or at least like a Niners tier, like a team that's probably, very likely to make the playoffs, but not as a high seed. Like, what level of engagement do you need for it to really buy in fully on a Black Friday game?
I mean, that's the beauty of showdown, right? And gambling and sports betting and pickups is that it doesn't really matter. Playing showdown really frees you from caring about the overall matchup. Like I would just go and run the Sims on those gross games and run it as if the score would be 10-7. And I would get a perverse pleasure in knowing I'm building lineups that are, engineered for a shitty game. So that's why I love fantasy. But to your point, for a more broad appeal, yeah, they probably want to get at least a mid-tier team in there and be a slightly higher quality than what they ship over to London every year, which is something I don't tend to get up for. I guess the time of that game would be interesting too, because that's the thing about the London game. When it's super early and shitty teams, then I think people check out. But if we have like a nice afternoon or early evening game, I think everyone will pull up like they normally would.
Okay, so let's say East Coast time will go because now Pete and I, unfortunately for me, we're both East Coast boys now. So I'm not going to think about the West Coast at all. But I guess still the West Coast can. This is a decent time for them. How about either 12 p.m., 1 p.m. East Coast start time for this game? And here's a tier of team I'm thinking, Pete. I'm thinking a team that could be a little better next year, but maybe still mostly in the middle of the pack. Minnesota Vikings versus the New Orleans Saints. Who's saying no to a 12 or 1 o'clock Black Friday game between the Vikings and the Saints?
I wouldn't say no to that one. The Vikings have shown a propensity for finding themselves in shootouts. That would be a dome game, regardless of where it is. That should be on the fast track there. Maybe New Orleans has figured out their quarterback situation by then. I think we get a nice little, 27-24 game. Black Friday remains an institution in the NFL industrial complex.
I like that we've now thought about how the game would work out too. It's like the 27-4 high scoring, but not too high scoring because you don't want to get greedy about it.
Yeah, and like Alex said, it could literally be any two teams at any time of the day, and I would still be excited. I mean, this is the beauty of action. Without action, I would not care about any NFL game. But we have all of our beautiful fantasy players, and that's all that matters.
I also like the idea of it being the Vikings too, because it's like, oh, the other NFC North teams get Thanksgiving, then the Vikings show up on Friday with their, honestly, maybe a more exciting team too. You have Justin Jefferson grown into his skin, KJ Osborne, being the new Adam Thielen, I think is what I'm hoping based on the best ball exposures we have so far. But I feel like overall, like that would be fun to me too, narratively, if it's like the Vikings or the Black Friday team, that the Bears and the Lions and whatever, they can have Thanksgiving Day, which is overrated anyway. Like that's a really avant-garde kind of new head coach kind of hire spot for the Vikings to be in. USFL draft, Pete. This is kind of a complicated one, and I have a lot of notes here. Have you seen? I think you have seen actually, right? Yeah. With the USFL and what they're doing.
Yeah, the way where it's by position and not just like an overall snake draft.
So they are. I'm going to read this, and there's a lot of news items here, but we are the unofficial home of the USFL, right, Pete? We have not been crowned the official home, so I feel like we should just go with the branding that we are the unofficial home of the USFL.
Yeah, no, I mean it's everyone's starting to get more and more excited. I saw Levitan have a tweet that he's almost a full 3.9 inches hard for this league as we continue to get more nuggets. So yeah, I'm happy to cement ourselves as the official USFL home.
I know Levitan's one of your buddies. I only know him on the podcast level, being a fan of his old DraftKings podcast we talked about when we had Smiz on the show. He, Peter Jennings, and Levitan used to do a great show called the DFS Edge on DraftKings. But I feel like Levitan's really found a lane for himself where he could talk like awkwardly about sex stuff while still talking about fantasy football. And that's one that there's not a lot of people doing that bit, Pete.
Yes, he is able to get away from it. There's been a few times I've been listening to a solo pod where he'll read a question that he got from a listener, and I'm like saying to myself as I'm listening to it, don't answer this question, Adam. I'm telling you, don't answer this question. And then he walks right up to the line and then it's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't answer this question. I was like, good job. So yeah, he knows where the line is, and he walks it well.
Yeah, so that kudos to him out there. Maybe we'll get him on this show of ours at some point. But the USFL, they're going to be drafting 450 to 500 players who have already signed contracts with the USFL. And here's the weird thing, Pete. The USFL announced they would not be disclosing the list of available players beforehand. So I don't know. I presume that means to us as the public, but this is the way it was phrased in the press release they put out, that they're not disclosing the list beforehand. Do we think it's possible they're just like telling the teams like, all right, there's going to be 40 to 50, 500 players. You're not going to know a single one. Like, because that would be the ultimate reality show that I would pay to watch.
That would be wild. And I wonder, what if they have any, because I know a bunch of the fantasy providers, and Justin was tweeting it out for kind of the Run the Sims optimizer he was putting together of like, do we have any kind of player pool that we know? So yeah, it is a bit of a mystery box right now. And it's exciting because we think of the guys who became, household names from the XFL, like Donald Parham. And it's exciting to know who this next batch of players is going to be.
I will say, based on the AFL or the AAF rather, and then the XFL, Derek, of course, Malden, Mass, well represented here, as always on Splash Play. I do think Jock Patrick, I would say, is a shoo-in to be in the USFL. Like, I would put 1,000 to 1 odds on Jock Patrick being one of the running backs who's probably a staple of the USFL.
Yeah, well, the other thing, though, too, is there's even some rumors today about the XFL getting back up and going, too. So do you think some of these XFL guys might have an allegiance to that old league? Are these two leagues going to be competing? You would think from the same player pool here. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what familiar faces we see popping up again.
You can see the teams on the screen there. Here's actually the draft order for the USFL draft before we talk about the minutia of the draft itself. But the Michigan Panthers, Jeff Fisher getting the number 1 overall pick. Tampa Bay Bandits going number 2. Philadelphia Stars number 3. The New Jersey Generals number 4. The Houston Gamblers, who I think are my favorite branded team, at number 5 in the USFL draft. Number 6, the Birmingham Stallions. Number 7, the Pittsburgh Maulers. And number 8, the New Orleans Breakers. Pete, you've seen more of these teams popping up on your social media timelines now. Have you developed an affinity for any of them?
I mean, the Houston Gamblers, that's the funnest name. I have positive associations with the Houston Roughnecks, the XFL team. So yeah, that's still the team I think sounds the most fun to root for. I am coming around on the Tampa Bay Bandits. I like the alliteration. It sounds pretty slick there. Yeah, I think this is going to be good. I'm excited to see too what kind of, I feel like there's a bunch of potential from the league for content as far as all of the teams being in Birmingham. And I actually hope that means that the coverage is even a little bit more streamlined. I know with the XFL, there were some, random guys who took it on themselves to be XFL beat reporters, but they really didn't even have any access. They were just like at home trying to look up stuff and then, serve as the de facto reporters. So maybe with everyone in the same location, we'll actually get a beat. Like it feels like a newspaper could hire someone to do the USFL beat and cover like all 8 teams, even if possible. So I'm hoping we get more content, more information than we even did with the XFL.
So 2 things. First of all, New Orleans Breakers, I have to say, based on the branding, based on the iconography they're using, which is a lot of wave-based stuff, which maybe feels a little bit untoward given the New Orleans tie-in. But I will say overall, though, New Orleans Breakers, I'm going to pitch to you, Pete. I think that should be our official team based on the splash play branding, based on their branding. It kind of feels like a natural marriage.
Okay. Don't you also feel like the Houston Gamblers is a natural marriage for us?
I do like the Gamblers. We do like gambling on the show. As people who've been in Pete's Deposit Kingdom Discord tailing me on first half college basketball.
Here we go.
Tell you, I do enjoy gambling here and there, but I do think the Breakers, like in terms of if we were to put together a team or even just build the uniforms on like Madden making a custom team, this feels like the splash play team.
I do like these uniforms. They're very clean and simple. I like kind of the little wave motif on them. I'm not opposed, but I also wouldn't mind allowing it to come to us more organically instead of you just bullying me into fandom here on day 1 of our USFL coverage.
I do know Kevin Sumlin, who is the Gamblers head coach, of course, coming with an offensive pedigree from college football, supposedly says they're going to be slinging the ball around. And that was, as Pete mentioned, the Houston Roughnecks were the XFL team that was the most fantasy friendly. PJ Walker, that's where my affinity for him grew. And a lot of people out there really, had their first exposure to PJ Walker, besides some highlights from Temple and his run there. That was the XFL. Him and Cam Robinson were stars that won people a lot of money the first 3 weeks. So I'm willing to keep it open, Pete, but I just feel like, if we're going to get behind somebody, get behind the 8th seed or the 8th team in the draft pool. Like they also get to snake it. So they're going to get the 8th pick and then the 9th pick. Like, I feel like there's both a game theory logic as well as just branding logic for us that seems too hard for me to overcome.
All right. Well, I'm not going to lock myself into anything now. If, Spags wants to, handcuff himself to Breakers fandom, knock yourself out. But I'm fluid. I got to keep my head on a swivel. I also have here, and I haven't debuted it yet. I'm waiting for the perfect time. I already have my USFL merch, and it's Rob Lowe NFL style hyper generic USFL merch. So maybe I'll let you root for laundry while I just root for the overall success of the league.
You root for the growth of football. That's really
that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, that's what someone on Twitter had said to me about USFL, that they thought I was cheating on the XFL. And no, I think there's room for people like me who just love the game of football. We spend every waking hour watching all 22 film, talking about coaching hires. I mean, it's just in our blood, Spags. It doesn't really matter what branding it has.
That's true. That is what this show has become. It's just us talking about football nonstop, no matter how much Pete doesn't want to talk about it. Lord knows we are going to talk about it. The one thing I will say that I think is actually, to your point of it feeling a bit like a carpetbagger approach, like XFL Newsroom is one of those sites that I was following during the XFL days and was, doing the best they could to be that equivalent of a beat reporter or a wire service of the XFL. You know what they're reporting on nonstop now? The USFL, Pete, which I feel like a slap in the face to all the XFL fans out there.
Okay, question for you. How many, without looking at anything up right now, how many USFL head coaches can you name? And I will say before you answer, if you can name more than 2, I will let the Breakers be the official team of Splash Play.
I mean, I know I've got Kevin Sumlin as the Houston Gamblers head coach. So that's one. Jeff Fisher is the Michigan Panthers head coach. That's two. Fucking what's his face? Mike Riley is one of the coaches, I think, but I don't know of which team. So does that count?
I'm impressed you knew. If you, I will give it to you. Yeah, because Mike Riley is the coach of the Generals. There's one other kind of obvious, more well-known name that I wasn't sure if you'd know. Todd Haley is the coach of the Bandits.
That's right. Todd Haley. That is one. Yeah. So no, Todd Haley is one I probably should have known, but yeah, those three. Willis, our accountant, saying it counts. So I guess welcome New Orleans Breakers, the official USFL team of Splash Play. Round of applause for everyone. Who knew it'd be President's Day? People are taking the day off, and here we are crowning our favorite USFL team.
Yeah. I went from 4 minutes ago saying I wasn't going to let you back me into it. And then, you knew your stuff. So yes, I will give in. The Breakers are our team.
Who's the Breakers head coach? Now
that's the one we should probably know. Let me see here. I just had this article.
Oh, Larry Fedora, former UNC head coach.
Yes, you're right. Larry Fedora, the man named after an old timey hat. What a pick. Let's do it.
His children, Dylan Fedora, Sydney Fedora, Haley Fedora, and Peyton Fedora, all coming courtesy of his spouse, Christy Wood, it seems. So we are proud members, not only the Breakers, but really the Fedora family at large.
Yeah, Willis is correct. I should have made it that you need to know the Breakers head coach. I messed that up. Also, it's so disappointing that you Google Larry Fedora. There's not one photo of him wearing a fedora. Like, how has he not done that for the bid equity?
Hey, welcome to the family, Larry Fedora. He honestly should wear a fedora every time he's on the sideline.
I can't believe Spags hasn't talked about, his photo with his partner here.
Oh, wow. Also, he's shredded. Is that him?
Yeah, Larry Fedora.
Okay, with the all right. You got the sexiest head coach in the USFL, I'd say.
You know what I would say? More like Larry Visor, guys, because that's all this guy wears.
Fucking Larry Visor. Well, we're rooting for Larry Visor now in the New Orleans Breakers. Here's hoping they get some of the good players out of the 500 player pool in the USFL, Pete.
Let's do it.
All right, so the USFL draft, to get to the point here, modified snake draft format, which is going to be kind of weird. There's a day one, there's a day two. Round one is going to be the quarterbacks, then the edge rushers and defensive ends, offensive tackles in rounds 5 to 7, cornerbacks in rounds 8 through 11, and then back to quarterbacks in round 12. So quarterbacks get their time in the spotlight twice on day one. And day two opens up with the wide receivers, then goes to the safeties in rounds 18 to 19, center in round 20, inside linebacker round 21, and guards round 22, 23. Pete, as unofficial USFL advisors, in addition to both, these adopted children of Larry Fedora, I would say that for us, I would like to see the fantasy friendly positions, like, make that the main event, like make that the live stream where you do 4 hours, or even put it on Fox or NBC. Like, we would tune in a heartbeat, even if we knew like 5 out of the 100 players ended up getting drafted.
Yeah, no, it goes a long way too. Like, you got to bring people along to get invested in it. And ESPN or whoever, who's carrying this draft coverage? Is it Fox?
Yeah, the two big, yeah.
Like, they should be prepping those basically like 20 to 30 second little backstory clips about all of the top picks, where they played, where they went to college, a couple highlights, what they've been doing in the past couple years. Like, get us emotionally invested in all of these players. So I hope Fox is hard at work on the necessary story building for a league like this to succeed.
They just keep, from what I can tell from the USFL strategy, it seems to be like, let's just keep putting news items on the herd and speak for yourself. And then just like, that's the whole approach, which, I enjoy seeing Colin Cowherd read the names of coaches alongside his very attractive host, who I'd never remember the name of. But I feel like besides that, just like, they're not doing the stuntiness that I want to see. Like, they could really make this a big opportunity of, like you're saying, telling these stories, maybe not full NFL draft. Like, oh, this guy was homeless, this guy's dad died. Like that's a little bit too much of a bummer. But make it fun. Give us a reason to care about these guys, besides when one of the teams just happen to look like your podcast branding, which is really the main audience they're hitting right now.
Yeah, and I feel like the XFL was kind of on the right track with that. And, XFL kind of has the history of being the, irreverent, bad boy league, but have some fun with it. The XFL having access to kind of the locker room speeches at halftime and stuff, I thought was a fun wrinkle. So yeah, anything that they can do to kind of play into more access, the social media stuff, I think will go a long way in making the league seem cool, because just right off the gate, USFL doesn't quite have the quote unquote cool branding that the XFL does. When you hear XFL, it feels a little edgy. USFL feels just stiffer when you hear it. So I think they need to do some work to convince non-gamblers that this is going to be very fun.
And Chicago Spartan pointing out it is in fact Joey Taylor I was thinking of. I didn't want to get the name wrong because that's almost as bad as not knowing it in the first place. So I feel good about that one. Though Joey Taylor, Pete, you want to talk about some Instagram profiles we can dig into? Joey Taylor's is one.
We'll save that for the Patreon version of this show, where Spags just takes you through a tour of everything he likes on Instagram, all the smut he watches.
It's just my internet searching. It's like good bets for the day and thick broadcast personalities who have very flattering Instagram photos.
I don't even want to know what you search for on Instagram.
And Eric Johnson saying, I miss DFS content. And hello, Eric. We appreciate you being here. Historical Anomalies, Sue, pointing out, I did see our guy, I guess our shared guy who I haven't talked to in years. So he's really not my guy anymore, but I'm going to keep claiming it as my guy. Drew Austin was firing some salvos at the NFL's way, going, forget these dinosaur leagues, fan control football. I have to say, fan control football's announcements, Pete, are not finding their way into my ecosystem quite as much as the USFL has.
Yeah, no, it is cool. I ended up with the Knights of Degen. You were on a whitelist to be able to mint some of those fan controlled NFTs. So I grabbed a couple of those, and I'm excited to see how it works. It's I think there is a ton of potential for that stuff, as far as, letting people be more a part of it. And I know even Jack Settleman was doing some stuff with one of the teams last year with the fans controlling the plays and all of that stuff. So it feels a little messy, a little pie in the sky for actually executing it in a logical way, but I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. Look, we're very open. We've been very clear about our free agency to any leagues out there that want to get a moderately enjoyed podcast about fantasy football. We're there for it all. But I do think USFL, to me, feels like it's got a little more of a pedigree and also a little more of a tie to the league. But I'm curious to see what fan control football pulls out, and if there's any way for me to write Pete's coattails on the NFT train for fan control football too, happy to do that as much as we can. And then the one last news item, Pete, before we dig into the NFL Super Bowl odds for next year that we're going to draft in the way that we do on this show. Going to pick our favorite Super Bowl bets for 2023. But the NFL XFL announced a partnership, Pete, where they're going to be doing the XFL will basically be an experimentation lab for NFL rules and equipment, and not officially going to be sharing talent in any way. So that's a pipe dream that a lot of people have talked about. Maybe it's something where the XFL is playing coy for now, but they'll get access to practice squad guys or something for their league. But overall, just the NFL XFL feels like a pretty big get for the new XFL, which is headed by The Rock and his ex-wife, who manages all his business empire, which real thorny one that would seem to trust with that one. But they're doing well for themselves, Pete. And I feel like the XFL and NFL working together, probably a good sign for another wannabe spring football league, which maybe gives us the chance to choice 3 potential spring football leagues coming up next year.
Yeah, I do feel, I know there were things outside of their control, at least with money and stuff, but taking, what will end up being 3 years off essentially is just such a tough blow, especially if the USFL really knocks us out of the park and they kind of get a foothold on this, because then we're headed toward a spring where, again, I don't think people will necessarily complain, but I think everyone would agree we'd all want one really good spring NFL or football product as opposed to 2 kind of watered down versions. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how it works as far as, competing with the USFL. Obviously, having the NFL's backing should give it more, of a spotlight, give it more resources. But yeah, that first mover advantage is pretty big. And I think they'll be watching the USFL closely to see kind of how much they need to step up their game.
Yeah, and it feels like the reboot of the XFL is kind of paying the price of the original XFL's success before the pandemic kind of knocked everything out of the way on there. But I'm curious to see what the USFL does. They're getting the first shot at these eyeballs, fan control football too. If they could put it together, you get a chance to get a little bit of a head start on an XFL. It's probably gonna have a lot of star power based on The Rock and his involvement. What's going into that? Also, one chat here from Chicago Spartan again saying the all-day marketplace opens tomorrow. Pete, I did get an all-day pack on Friday, paid my $270, whatever it was, that I was really reluctant to pay on the show. And then Pete said, no, it's going to be worth it. And I got it. I'll tell you, actually, Pete, guess for yourself, scale of 1 to 10, how happy am I with my marketplace pack, or not my marketplace purchase, my pack purchase of NFL All Day?
Which one you got? Did you get the Super Bowl pack?
I got the Super Bowl. Yeah, I got my rare one as well. I got a 1 out of
Uh,
1,200.
and yeah, this was the $259 pack. I also got one of these. Based on sentiment that I saw, it seemed like a lot of people were disappointed with the quality of the pack. So I will say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being euphoric, 1 being I'm never going back to this product ever again, I will say your sentiment level is a 4 on this pack.
So here, my sentiment level 1 to 10 is 2 Cyril Graysons is my sentiment level, because I did in fact get myself 2 of that man on one at number 212 out of 10,000. So I'm sure going to be really valuable to the Cyril Grayson collectors. The second one I got, Pete, of Cyril Grayson, 8,900 out of 10,000. But do you want to guess who my rare moment was? And it is a player that you grew to fall in love with over the course of this season.
I grew to fell in love with maybe Sony Michel.
He's a guy that you like the archetype a lot now and have talked about wanting to get this guy in next year's best ball drafts.
Okay. And wait, is it a player that played in the Super Bowl?
It is not a player that played in the Super Bowl. It is a player that was about as far from the Super Bowl as could possibly be.
Elijah Moore?
Close, a rookie receiver, different team.
Okay. Amon-Ra St. Brown?
There you go. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm the proud owner of a number 507 out of 1199 of Amon-Ra St. Brown on NFL All Day.
Yeah, I mean, those the thing is I have no idea how these are going to be valued. You can look to the, traditional sports card market where it is, the super young superstars, guys like Jamar Chase, and then the young quarterbacks. It's Mahomes, Herbert, I believe, was one of the hottest cards all offseason in the physical card market. So I'm curious how much that carries over to NFL All Day. And I'll give a quick shout out to the guys over at Own the Moment, because they do a really good job looking at kind of expected value of these packs, the valuations and stuff. And so they said they're all ready for to process the data when the marketplace opens. And I believe this is just a dummy stuff, but you can see here, they'll have, low ask, how much it's moving over a 24-hour, what kind of volume, how much the different sets are going for. So I'll be keeping a close tab on that. I haven't opened my pack yet. I'm going to open mine tomorrow on Club Top Shot, but it still seems like they're figuring out kind of how to do those packs. And I know some people who don't read the fine print, they think, hey, I'm getting all Super Bowl moments in these Super Bowl packs. Not necessarily the case. So I still think, similar to issues they've had with Top Shot and Dapper in general, communication, site issues, lots of bugs to get fixed. But yeah, should be fun once we get the marketplace open, at least.
And yeah, everybody can keep their eye peeled to the marketplace when it's up, because I will be listing all of these in the hope of earning a profit on this pack. I did get a Jalen Hurts 1,200 out of 10,000, and I got a Ryan Tannehill 7,000 out of 8,000. So those are probably my biggest ticket items, I guess. Lil Jordan Humphrey. Is there a lot of buzz in the street about Lil Jordan Humphrey?
Spartan, though, talking that, mentioning your Amon-Ra, that will be his rookie debut. And so that will, I would presume, get a rookie debut badge eventually. And I know those, were helped moments on Top Shot, at least eventually, when those were added. Also, I had not heard anyone use the NADS acronym for NFL All Day, because it is a little clunky to say All Day, NFL Top Shot. And so I like NADS. I think I'm going to roll with NADS as my official way to talk about this new marketplace.
And our accountant Willis, of course, officially an employee of the show because we paid him this year. My rare was a DL and the Dolphins catching a TD pass. So another thing that Willis is doing for us in his job description, making me feel better about having a Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I feel like if you got that rare, Pete, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Well, the other thing too that I know caught some people off guard with their moments. I'm pulling up a tweet that I remember seeing from Jesse, who goes by Yodo on Twitter. He was super confused. He's like, "Why do I just have generic teams as my moments?" But this is because one of the styles that they're doing is a team melt. Where it's a compilation of plays from the team. So you just like imagine, you're ready to pull your Jamar Chase, and then you just see Detroit Lions, generic Detroit Lions. So yeah, it's everyone's going through a learning experience right now. Welcome to Dapper, guys.
Is that Tim Boyle on the art?
I believe it is.
Because I think he was number 7, right?
Tim Boyle. If I could spell. No, he's 7.
Yeah, so that was it. That was
number
Jared 7. Goff. Oh wait, no, Goff's number 1, right? That didn't look like a 1.
All right. Yeah, you're right. I don't know who the hell that is.
So they just the punter throwing the pass. Or they had
Yeah.
somebody just like shooting a studio shoot of like for the same guy in every possible uniform that there was.
Or I mean, who is that? Is that old Matthew Stafford?
No, because he was number 3.
Okay. All right. Well, fuck
Let's
if I
see.
know.
Lions. There is no Lions number 7, it looks like, on their official roster. If anybody knows, feel free to drop it in chat because I would certainly be curious to know who this mystery Lion is. And I'll update, of course. I'm not going to come in. I know, Pete, you have been very early in the NFT scene, and especially the NFT memorabilia and how it relates to sports and all that. For me, I come in with none of those biases where I've not made a single cent off of NFTs besides whatever I've made off of NBA Top Shot. And I will approach this all day thing with completely unfiltered eyes, unlike Pete's, who just big money, big dapper money is getting you left and right.
I mean, I am highly skeptical, coming into things here. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see what the marketplace action is like when this opens up.
Are
And
you ready?
go ahead. I was just going to say too. I mean, Top Shot is finally, that with a bunch of the challenges stuff, they kind of, reinvigorated the market with some excitement. And obviously, we'll have a long way to go until they can start doing some NFL challenges, at least in a week by week way. So I think that will be fun. I mean, one thing that if you have been collecting on Top Shot and just kind of continually buying packs, that normally when they release the challenges, you'll have, 3 to 4 of the 5 or 6 moments needed to complete a challenge. And, in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, a bunch of guys will swap and trade to help each other complete those. So I probably won't go dumping stuff right away unless the prices seem incredibly frothy, just with the idea being it might be nice to have a nice base of moments for when the challenges do start to roll around.
All right. I guess maybe I'll hold on then. I just don't want to end up in the spot like I ended up on NBA Top Shot, where I now have a bunch of $4, $3 moments that I don't think the players' parents wouldn't want these NFT moments at this point, Pete, of guys like Isaac Okoro. And like my NBA Top Shot is like a mausoleum of mediocrity.
Yeah. Well, NBA Top Shot had its moment where the Bruno Fernandos were worth like $65 each. So who knows? Maybe the punters will have their day in the sun on NFL all day.
Oh, there we go. Jim in the chat and Willis working together. Apparently that was number 3 on the Lions, and 3 is their punter, Jack Fox. So that is the illustrious name that you get on your Detroit Lions NFL All Day packs.
Yeah. As someone who makes thumbnails for YouTube, and thumbnails are a very important part of getting people to click videos, get excited about things. Everyone knows about clickbait. You're going to need to up your game with the clickbait. I mean, we're going to need to get a DeAndre Swift on there for the team melt, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know if Jack Fox is getting people to smash the open button like they'd hope.
Yeah, TJ Hawkinson I'll even allow, but like once we get to the Tom Kennedy, not the Osmo CEO, but the football player who played a few snaps. There's another, like, those guys, you got to be at least wide receiver 3 or above, I think, to make the cut of a stock image. Are you ready to do the sportsbook bets?
Yeah.
Go over the DraftKings sportsbook. Do you need me to give you the link? Would be the other question.
Sure.
I'll give you the link. Here's a link. Giving old Pete, God forbid Pete go to DraftKings himself. He's not in a legal sportsbook state. He doesn't even know how to navigate it.
Yeah, well, what happened, the reason I asked for a link is because every time I try to go to it, it makes me log in, and then it says you can't log in, and I'm like, I just need the landing page to actually look at the bets. Relax.
Yeah, we're just trying to make content around DraftKings Sportsbook. But we are going to make content. We shall make indeed, because we are going to go and draft the team odds here one by one. It'll help introduce you guys out there to some of the Super Bowl odds, expected Super Bowl winners for next year. But also, kind of talk more about what we talk about a lot on the show, which is the concept of value in betting. And even though I do think the Chiefs and Bills, probably 2 teams, Pete, that we're going to take early on, that might not mean that they're actually the best bets to take, number 1 overall, just because of the juice you're getting on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I do think if we were just saying our best bets, like if we could only make one bet, just looking at possible, ROI and expected value, I probably am not picking the Chiefs or Bills. But if we're doing a draft, it's almost like those kind of picks raise your floor for your portfolio. So I don't know if I would just be doing all plus 2000s and higher in a draft, even though in a vacuum, maybe those offer the best. So I actually do think the draft adds an interesting wrinkle to GTO strategy for this.
So actually, that's an interesting question then. So like, how are we going to evaluate the success of this draft? Obviously, it's going to be whoever has the winner, but like, is every pick assuming that we then put $100 on each pick?
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's say it's a $100 unit, and then it's whoever returns the most on their. What would it be? Are we doing all 32 teams?
Man, see, that's the tough part though, because like there should be value of like if you draft, like if you took the Lions at plus 15,000 and they make the NFC title game or something, like not the most likely thing to happen unless Jack Fox also tries his hand at quarterback. But I do think like that's something that should be rewarded theoretically in this.
Let's do no, because then that's a different thing. Then we're doing conference championship odds. We're doing Super Bowl futures, and I do think that should factor into it that there are some of these teams that have the potential to make a deep run, but do we actually think they could win the Super Bowl? I feel like that's a different conversation. What if we each do 5 teams and it is $100 unit bet, and whoever's fake $500 returns the most, even though.
So then we're not drafting every team then.
Yeah, well, I just feel like at some point, I mean, do we really need to be drafting the Chicago Bears? Like
That's don't necessarily mean to the Bears. They have a shot.
I mean, my thesis is that there's maybe at most like 10 interesting bets here.
I like the idea of drafting them all. Also, why do you have NFL draft odds on? What's on that? I don't have that on mine.
What are you talking about?
Where it says Team Futures 2022 draft.
Sorry, where are you looking?
Up top, underneath Sportsbook, football odds, NFL odds.
Yeah.
You have 2022 draft.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, but you're not, okay, that's actually very confusing. I'm in a legal sportsbook state. I can't make these bets. Like these bets are only available on like the Bet Online, the offshore books. You're in a not legal sportsbook state, but you have access to bets that you also can't place.
Yeah, it says we're having trouble verifying your location, which is required to bet. So maybe they're just showing me.
Yeah, I also don't have awards. Like I don't have 2022 draft or awards on mine in Pennsylvania.
Wow. This is it's a mystery. I'll be sure to let my DraftKings rep know that something fishy is afoot.
Yeah, it's hell while you're talking about
the chat's mad at me saying that the Bears would. I didn't know that there was such a demand for the Bears future market. You guys can draft the Bears.
Well, Pete, I think the people want to see us draft every team and have a stake in each team for the year. And I think that's, okay. How about this? What if the round were a multiplier? So like if you took the Chiefs in round 2, it would be like taking us like a plus 1,500 bet.
It seems really complicated, Spags.
It does.
I feel like there's enough strategy in, I do think it's your ROI, right? Because like, let's just say we went on opposite spectrums for strategy and you went like Chiefs, Bills, Rams, or whatever. You're probably raising your floor. But if I were to hit, I mean, I guess it's a binary thing though, right? Mm-hmm. Which it's like, you either get the team that wins or you don't.
How about we add up our final, like if we get however many guys we get into the conference title game, like maybe it's something we just check back on and we see like what the value of our overall portfolio is based on the teams we have left.
What if we do this?
What if we just draft the Bears every round?
What if we draft what we think, what if we draft together, Spags, not against each other, the best, trying to rank the best bets? And that factors in, obviously, the odds.
I just like the idea of having a thing where we have like a portfolio that we go back to. Though, admittedly, I didn't share this idea with Pete in advance, and in fact, it just came to me.
Well, what if we change? Then what if we do conference winner? Because then you can actually have, 2 of us be right in that there was. What about this? We do conference winner. We each pick a conference, and whoever has a higher ROI wins. We should have planned this out ahead.
So we draft. Yeah, we should have, honestly. This could have been something we did like 5 shows off of. Actually, we're burning it on one segment, which we argue.
Mike, this is what we're trying to figure out right now, man. This is what we're working through.
All right, I think let's do the conference one. I think we're living by the guideline of the SEO title that's on Football Outsiders and Pete's channel, which I think is fine. I think we draft our conference guys, and then we just keep tabs on them as we go, and maybe we trade them. I don't know, like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. Okay. So Willis thinks we're on to something here. We each pick 5 from each conference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this way it's a little less binary.
But for the conference winner.
Yes.
So we're picking 10 in total.
Yes.
Okay. I like it. All right, cool. All right, I'm on board now. So now let's Pete set the table again. Now that we've figured out what we're actually doing.
Okay, so we are going to we're going to do a draft, and we are going to alternate back and forth. So say if Spags, I'll give you first pick for the AFC, and then I'll have the second AFC pick, and then I'll have first NFC pick. You'll have that, and we'll just snake back and forth.
Okay. I think I got that. So,
Yeah.
And let's do it the way you said it so we don't have to change anything here. I guess I'll just take. See, now this is where it falls apart because the value just seems to be in taking the Chiefs because I'll have access to the Chiefs and they are the number one overall favorite to win it all. So I'll take the Chiefs at plus 400 with the number one pick.
Okay. Spags is taking Chiefs plus 400. And then I have the second pick. So yes, I will match you here, and I'll take Bills plus 400. I do think it gets far more interesting after those top two picks. So then I go first for NFC.
Yep.
Yeah. So NFC, I'm actually going to pass on the Rams. I don't like them. I don't feel like they are as strong of a team, relative to the conference as the Chiefs and the Bills are. So I will take the Niners at plus 600.
Interesting. You're taking the nine. You are back in your Niners. All of our
back
bets
on my bullshit.
Yeah. Right. Niners plus 600. I think there's a lot of things that could go poorly for the Rams, but now I think relative to you passing on the Rams, I feel like they're undervalued for this spot. So I have to take the Rams plus 450.
Okay.
Because it just takes another Cooper Kupp year of being Cooper Kupp and what he did this year, which
wow. Spags now on Cooper Kupp, the MVP of the league. What a fish.
All right. I mean, I wouldn't take him as the MVP bet. I don't think
so. Now it's back to me. I get to pick.
Wait, or is it, or do I get another AFC team?
You do, but after I go, because we alternate. You just got the first pick in the AFC. Next time we come back, you'll get first pick in the NFC.
Yeah, but you already picked. We've picked two NFC teams already. It should be you took one AFC, one NFC. I take one NFC,
flipped.
One AFC.
You got first pick in the AFC the first time. I got first pick in the NFC the first time, and now it's going to flip. I get first pick in the AFC. You get first pick in the NFC.
I don't think this works, but I'll do it.
Yes, it does. You got to pick Chiefs. All right, I'm going to take what I think is truly my favorite bet on the board, both for Super Bowl futures and also in the conference. I'm taking the Chargers at plus 1,200.
Wow. All right. But then do you pick another NFC team here?
No, now you're doing AFC, and then you get to pick first for the NFC. Trust me. Our accountant even understands what's going on here.
All right.
We're snaking within the conferences themselves.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. But you took the Bills at some point, didn't? All right, whatever.
Because I took the Chiefs first.
I get where you guys are going now. All right. Now it makes sense. I needed you to set the table one more time. I get an AFC team then. Is Joe Burrow lucky or is he good?
Wow. The age-old question.
That is. All right. This is a long. No, I shouldn't take this team now. There's no reason to do that. I will take a flyer on a healthier Lamar Jackson, Harbaugh coming back and feeling good. Baltimore Ravens plus 1,000 will be my pick. And we have really snubbed the Bengals now.
I think we've really snubbed the listeners because everyone's confused. Everyone's heads hurts. No one even understands the premise of the show. We are in peak off-season form right now, but you do now have the first pick of this NFC leg. Off the board are the Niners and Rams.
Okay, so because I can go back here, I'm shocked to see the Seahawks at plus 1,500. I don't like that. I'm gonna go crazy here and take the Minnesota Vikings at plus 1,600. I talked myself into with the Black Friday thing earlier in the show. I think things are really looking up for the Vikings, so Vikings at plus 1,600.
You're obsessed with the Vikings today, winning the conference, the Black Friday game. Like, what's your fixation with the Vikings?
I just, I feel like you were so mean to Bears fans, so I have to prop up another NFC team. Honestly, I should just lead in on the Bears and be like, go Bears, go Bear down, everyone.
All right, I'm going to take kind of a mirror image a little bit of how I feel about my Chargers plus 1200 pick. I'm going to take the Cardinals at plus 1200, and I know there's obviously kind of a lot of risk there. I know that they don't have a ton of cap space, but I do, really think similar to Justin Herbert with the Chargers, Kyler Murray, we saw what he can do when he's playing at an elite level. And I do think they're just kind of a few pieces away of everything really clicking and just being a team that can be explosive and rip off a few playoff wins. So I like the Cardinals at plus 1200 there.
What about when Colt McCoy is the starting quarterback because Kyler Murray goes to play baseball?
Kyler Murray isn't going to play baseball. He would be he would be like a random news story for like a week, and then no one would care anymore.
So does this mean now that you take another NFC team?
When we come back, I have first pick in the NFC.
We're
snaking. There's two drafts going on right now, an AFC and an NFC, and we are snaking within those. One of us got first pick in one conference, the other got the first pick in the other conference. Why the fuck is this so hard to understand, Spags?
I just thought that you would take another NFC team then, and then I go.
Oh, God.
Okay. So I take an AFC team now.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. All right. It honestly feels like I'm doing this as a bit. I swear I'm just very confused. It's also President's Day, Pete. Maybe there was a little bit of greenery that went on.
Wait, you're smoking before the show? You and Eric, everyone got stoned before the show except me? Why didn't I get the memo?
I thought about Pete, we should do this surprise weed show, but then I was like, I don't know what Pete's doing.
Surprise weed show. Surprise. We're even more disorganized and out of it than normal. What a surprise.
I was prepared. I had a great segment sheet. We just didn't fully flesh this one out. And then we got on the show and it really...
Thank you. This makes so much more sense because normally I feel like you're a very logical thinker. You plan things out, but I feel like I'm talking to a fucking child today.
It was hours ago. I thought I'd be good.
Jesus.
All right, so I get an AFC pick. It's Ian.
God, doing a convoluted draft with someone that's high is just like the last thing I want to be doing right now. God, I'm pissed.
It's also because today is not an official work day, so I didn't do work to get into the mindsets.
God, when Edge Sports start to drug test their employees.
All right, let's dig deep for this one. Josh McDaniels moves to Las Vegas, changes the culture. The Raiders now paying off at plus 2,500 for all the fervent fans at Allegiant Stadium. My God, what a deal! I'm taking the Raiders.
Okay. I'm going to go deep into the options here. I mean, we're talking bottom of the barrel. We're talking trying to recapture what the Bengals did this year. And that is a young quarterback who might have had a little bit of a rough first season. We're talking about a team with loads of cap space, tons of emerging talent, one of the most versatile Swiss Army knives on its team in the entire league in Laviska Shenault. We're taking the Jags at plus 6,000.
Do you have to play the clip for that?
No.
Right. I mean, I like the thesis of it. Doug Peterson gets his redemption song. He gets a decently drafted team, with some value. Travis Etienne coming back. Man, the backfields of Travis Etienne and Laviska next year, Pete, you could talk yourselves into that one for some underdog stacks.
I've already talked myself into it. Okay, now Spags, if you're following along, know that
an NFC team? Yeah, okay.
I have the first pick in the NFC. So to catch people up, so far I have taken Niners at plus 600, Cardinals at plus 1,200. My stone co-host has taken the Rams at plus 450 and the Vikings at plus 1,600.
You also took the Bills at plus 400.
I was recapping the NFC, Spags. God damn it. Jesus.
Classic President's Day show. Visca more like a butter knife. Thank you, David Berger.
Stop, David. Okay, for my pick of the NFC is going to be, man, the NFC is just such a weak division in general, and I just do not like the odds for the Packers and Cowboys at 600 and 650. Mm-hmm. That's just such a tough sell for me. I will. Is there a long shot I like here? God, I really don't. God, this division sucks. I guess I'll take the Seahawks at plus 1500. Just hope that they work things out with Russ. Pete Carroll decides to take a year sabbatical and Russ finally cooks.
Okay, I like it. I think that's, I mean, look, you're asking a lot to happen. Though, honestly, like seeing the Seahawks up there at plus 1,500, TFS Texas thing, I'm out of the family. Yeah, honestly, deservedly so. I think there's one of those odds where, like, for Seattle, I just don't get why they're that high. Like, what could you possibly make as a case for why they'd be plus 1,500?
Seattle, because Russell Wilson is still a what? Top 6, top 7 quarterback in the
Is Pete
league?
Carroll a top 5, top 6 coach at this point? I think, and I say
No,
that as a USC proud alum here.
but quarterbacking matters way more than coaching. And we've seen them flip the switch. They've had those periods of 5 to 6 weeks to start the season. Last year when Russ was cooking and their offense looked incredible. They still have two of the best, wide receivers. I would say they're a top, 3 or 4 wide receiver duo in the league in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Their run game can always get going. So I still feel like they have the potential, even though they've been massively frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I just don't think they should be the 7th overall or 7th highest odds team to do that, but that's neither here nor there. Willis,
it is here nor there. It's literally the entire premise of this. This is
it's
what
neither here nor there, I'd say. And I would say that neither here nor there as well will be that at this point, as Willis points out in the chat, I just have to take one of the Packers or Cowboys for just, I guess, the value I'm getting here. So I'm going to take a lenient on what we've talked about the last week or so. Aaron Rodgers coming back. I don't love the bet itself. Probably not one I would be dying to take at plus 600, but just on a chance, Pete, of making some money off of our NFC drafting, I'll take the Packers at plus 600.
Okay. So we now have each made, let's see. We have each made 3 picks in each division. How much do you want to keep going?
I think 2 more each. Another couple rounds, bartender or bud tender, even perhaps.
Okay. Now it is back to me in the AFC with the first pick. Off the board is Chiefs at plus 400, Bills at plus 400, Ravens at plus 1,000, Chargers at plus 1,200, Raiders at plus 2,500, Jags at plus 6,000. I will kind of do what you did with the Packers pick, and I'll go ahead and just take the Bengals here at plus 650. I think they will continue to beef up the offensive line this offseason. And I think just getting there, improving it, going through that as such a young team is going to help them in the playoffs next year, just from an experience standpoint. So I still think the Bengals, even though I don't love those odds, seem like a little rich. But I think they definitely deserve to be in that mix, and I will take them there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Just getting another high probability team based on how we're playing this out. I think taking the Bengals there made them probably the most sense. I then get another team. Why are the Broncos plus 1,100? That would be a question I would have.
That was the one we talked about when we pulled these up a couple weeks ago. It's still so bizarre that the Broncos have shorter odds than the Chargers, just on Rodgers rumors that don't even seem to be that logical anymore.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, I still don't think, like, I definitely don't want to take that at plus 1,100. It feels like it should be longer odds. Titans always there, plus 1,200, kind of interesting. Colts plus 1,200, also kind of interesting. But I will default to another year of growth for Mac Jones, Bill Belichick doing what he does. I'm going to take the Patriots at plus 1,300.
Yeah, that was going to be my next bet for my final one after Bengals. I like that one a lot.
There we go. Now who's the one who's too high to do a show for the internet?
I don't start with me. All right, you get first pick for the NFC. Are you going to take your sweet darling Cowboys?
So yeah, I mean, Willis does point out it would be logical to take the Cowboys here because I could box out a good amount of the top part of the NFC's odds because I would have the Rams then as well. But I think I'm actually going to go against type, and just simply because, as Pete talks about, we often walk around our neighborhood just to canvass people and get a read from the people. I couldn't do that without taking the Philadelphia Eagles here at plus 1,600. Jalen Hurts taking a jump here, and they run the ball 750 times to get themselves to a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, I can't believe, I thought you were going to make me pay, as Willis pointed out, when I realized that I let you snake get both of those. but you're too high to make me pay. So I will take the Cowboys at plus 650 now. Spags.
You know what? It's just the Cowboys. We all know as fans of the Cowboys or people that have watched them and maybe felt negatively about them over the years that they're going to find a way to blow this somehow, Pete. And what a way to blow it than to blow it to the plus 1,600 Eagles.
All right. It is the final pick for each of us in these conferences. You now have the final or second to last AFC pick. You get to go first.
All right. I just don't think this is tough. It's tough to pick against a team that was the number 1 overall seed, given that they have the same odds as this team. But the Colts at plus 1,200, I think they're a better coached team. I think they have some flexibility to make a move with Carson Wentz or not make a move. As we talked about with Michael Pittman last week, I think that just another year of the team kind of coming together on offense. Jonathan Taylor continuing to get better. I think the Colts plus 1,200 is the best bet left on the board that has decent odds.
I am crowdsourcing from the chat. I'm going to let them help me pick my final one. I am torn between the Dolphins at plus 2,500 and the Browns at plus 1,600. I will take majority consensus, just write Browns or Dolphins based on what you guys would like to see. I think both of those teams have some stuff going for them. Dolphins at plus 2,500 just being, plus 900 more than the Browns is kind of intriguing. But I do think the Browns as well. I mean, the Browns were, I think, the team I picked as a Super Bowl future last year when we started doing the show in the offseason that I liked as well. Let's see. I see 1 Browns, 1 Dolphins, 2 Browns, 2 Dolphins. GA, no. I mean, no.
You have the Jets at plus 8,000. That's a big payday, Pete.
It looks like Dolphins are taking the lead right now. Does anyone else want to toss in a vote here as far as Dolphins versus Browns? I will be happy to go fins up.
I think you have to take the Dolphins at this point, given your historical connection to the franchise. Mike McDaniel coming in as well. Those are all positives. Whereas the Browns have done nothing positive thus far.
All right. Yo mama seals it. We're going with the Dolphins here. Fins up, baby. Plus 2,500.
Right. There you go. Dolphins plus 2,500. Have we now drafted 5 each for each conference?
For AFC, not for NFC, Spags.
Okay. So you have one more NFC to do?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Man, the NFC is so gross, but let's see here. My 5th pick for the NFC. I guess I'll just take the Bucs at plus 1,100. Who knows? Tom Brady has a change of heart. Gronk tells him how much fun he's having partying in South Beach, and they decide to stay there and do it one more year. I don't know.
Or they decide to go to the Dolphins then, and that also enhances that.
Yeah, Wills is probably right. Panthers probably the better pick there. I hate my pick of the Bucs. I mean,
honestly, Willis is also right that I should have taken the Cowboys before. I thought that was the 5th pick. So that's another error in strategy I've made during this one amidst 1 or 2, I suppose we could say. I will take. What are the Saints going to do? Why are the Saints plus 1,600? That feels like something. I'm going to take the Saints at plus 1,600. I don't know why they're there, but I feel like the fact that I got them, the Eagles and the Vikings, teams that are in the middle of the pack that maybe can make a rise upwards. It was either the Saints or the Commanders for me, Pete, at plus 2,500 as people, maybe down on them after they did disappoint last year as a dark horse, a Super Bowl candidate. But the Saints bringing their defensive coordinator, promoting him. The defense was probably the only good spot or only reliable spot last year. So the Saints, to me, I think are probably the best pick.
Yeah. And I think just in general, the NFC feels so much more wide open. AFC is top heavy. I mean, like Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals all going to be legit. I feel like we haven't even seen the Ravens ceiling yet. If they get, Lamar back at, firing at all cylinders. So those top 4, whereas like comparing it to the top 4 for the Rams, Niners, like Rams and Niners compared to Chiefs and Bills, like that's not in the conversation for the top 2. I guess the Packers Cowboys tier is maybe more comparable to the Bengals Ravens tier, but I think just the Chiefs and the Bills at the top give the AFC a little bit more certainty.
We also didn't draft this team, but Giants at plus 4,000. I feel like bringing in a competent coach who has some of the similar weapons he had as an offensive coordinator in Buffalo. I think there's something interesting there. They've also hired a lot of women, Pete, which I don't know if you've seen the headlines on, but they've hired I think 3 female coaches for the most in the league. And maybe there's some positive vibes for the Giants at the second lowest odds overall in the NFC.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So who is Willis? Are you going to be sure to remind us conference championship? Do I need to make a Google? Maybe I'll put it on my Google calendar and I will make a little thing and I'll put these picks in. Actually, no, Nick suggested something before we wrap up, and I agree. To end this segment, we need Spags to accurately recap the premise of this activity, including the order of the picks. Spags, you have the floor.
So I did write down all the picks, to be clear, just in
Oh
case we needed
God.
them. I know that there was no chance I would have gotten that if we didn't.
Wow.
Like, there's no way.
What stoner takes notes? You're even a shitty stoner.
Look, I'm half stepping as quote Mike on Breaking Bad. But no, we did draft the teams to give Nick what he wants here. We drafted the teams in a snake order. The thing that confused me was the going conference to conference. Like, I thought we were doing them both holistically.
No, we
Like, as
weren't.
a sum of the parts kind of thing.
We could have done it that way, but once we established just some kind of, framework for this, we had to roll with it.
There's Derek wanted me to say them without looking down. No, I've done enough for one show, I would say, except plugging here on the way out. Make sure you follow at Splash Play Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Please go follow them so you'll know whenever we're doing a show. We put in so much love and thought into each and every one. Honestly, Pete, I spent so much time researching USFL draft rules. I didn't have time to do anything else.
Yeah, it's tough. We forgot to research the main tentpole segment for the show today. Got distracted by USFL and visors and fedoras.
Well, the good news is we could still do the Super Bowl futures draft at a separate day now. So we
God,
racking up these bits.
Never again.
But make sure to tail all of our Super Bowl or our conference championship picks. Make sure to come back on Friday. We're going back into Underdog, where you can use the promo code SPLASH to get up to a $100 deposit match and play alongside of us in the 2022 big board, where you can draft some rookies. You can also draft based upon your best possible data that's out there. And a lot of debate I've been following. I feel like if you follow Eric Beimfor and see him pop up, he's always debating something on best ball. And honestly, it's always really interesting. I don't know if you saw him debating Hayden on some of the data around drafting 3 QBs and all of that, but we don't get to that level of micro strategy here on the overall. But I feel like, Pete, you and Chip chasing as well, doing a great job. But I feel like there's a lot of people talk about best ball more than ever. I feel like, at least in my feeds.
Yeah, no, we should circle back to that conversation on Friday. What Spags is referencing, if you didn't see, is Hayden had an article out looking at how much QB3s added on specifically Josh Allen teams. And Josh Allen had the highest win rate for quarterbacks. And mainly the thesis behind Hayden's article was, normally the conventional wisdom is when you take a quarterback early that you only take 2 quarterbacks. And so he was looking specifically at an overperforming relative to ADP quarterback, how the QB2 versions of those teams versus the QB3 versions of those teams worked out. And so he had some interesting thing. And it's always tough with that data too, what's popping in the aggregate versus, the high end tail outcomes as well. And, the debate comes down to, is that extra 6th running back or 9th wide receiver more important than that 3rd quarterback? And I do think it's an interesting conversation, and maybe we can dive into it a little bit more on Friday.
And Eric in the chat asking, best ball's a new DFS. It is in some ways, I think, Pete. Now, we can talk again. We're going to be talking about these all year long. Basically, we're doing best ball drafts pretty much every week moving forward. But I think that in the respect of, DFS, if you went 5 years ago and you just knew that NBA players would be playing certain rotations, or you knew to stack your QB up with at least one wide receiver and then maybe do a run back from the opposing team with it, you would have made a lot of money. And I think that's sort of where, to me, and Pete, you might feel differently as somebody who's been doing this and really digging in deeper with sharp players for a longer period of time. I think that's where best ball is right now. Is people trying to figure out what the edges are, maybe overthinking the edges a little bit too much. Like the equivalent would be overstacking in NFL weekly DFS. But I think that, to me, is where the best ball industry feels like people getting more comfortable with having a company hold their money for an extended period of time. But I think it's just it's not fully sharpened up. And I think, just frankly, Pete, the amount of people we've seen win big money over the last year, including people who are just watchers of this show, I feel like it tells me that it's not been figured out. And I think that's sort of what the next 2 to 3 years of best ball is people trying to optimize as best they can.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because there is still such limited data for this stuff. So, I mean, it's easy to say really small sample size and a few outliers can kind of skew the data for a single position as well. Even I know Sean Siegel over on RotoViz had done a lot of best ball work, and a lot of years the 101 has had a really bad win rate just because the 101 had randomly been getting hurt a lot. So it's funny how that's like, you would never say, I don't want the 101, even though within a small sample size in a few years, you wouldn't have wanted it. So yeah, I think it is still this kind of fertile ground for this data analysis. And it's feels less solved than some of these other games where kind of the optimal strategy becomes clear after there's so much data. I mean, when we're playing showdown slates or, main slates, we just have so many of them that we have a lot of data that can point to the best way to do it. Whereas best ball, it's still the Wild West.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking a lot about that. We're also going to be bringing some experts on this offseason, so make sure to hang out with us. If you put up with this show, you better be here every week, because this is probably a nadir what we're doing the offseason content-wise. But we appreciate you for being here. Make sure to follow at Chris Spags, follow at Peter Overzet, and follow at Splash Play Pod. And Pete, what's your show schedule coming up?
Club Top Shot tomorrow night. We'll talk a little bit about OpenSea. There was a big kind of phishing hack that went on that sent a lot of people into panic. So we'll talk about that. And also, opening the NFL All Day Pack. I've been sitting on mine. So if you want to see me get disappointed when I pull Detroit Lions team melts with punters on the cover, you can tune in tomorrow night for that.
Yeah, make sure to check me out on the NFL All Day Marketplace. If you want to pay an exorbitant price for an Amon-Ra St. Brown rare moment, I'll be your guy on there. So please go check that out and come back on Friday. We'll be back on the Underdog Streets doing the 2022 Big Board. So we appreciate you guys for hanging out. Enjoy your weeks. See you soon.